Well, I've been stick framing some doorways and thought maybe a shortcut that somebody else would appreciate that I've just picked up. I think, again, a lot of people will agree, as far as a remodel, stick framing is easier than building a square plumb wall or a square wall and then standing it up plumb, because this house in particular is settled on the left side. So that allows me to cut each vertical stud to a set length, so there's no gaps where it touches at the rafters. Anyway, so if you stick frame a wall, you get to the point where you need to stick frame doorways. Now, the way I did my stick framing, wrongly in some ways, I framed the whole wall. Like, for example, in the office here, I had framed this entire wall, and stupidly actually put fire blocks in all the way, and then realized, well, I've walled in a closet. So I had to come back and put my doorways in. Now, my cripples are still missing, but I found a really neat way. It's just easy. Going back to a previous tip that I may never publish, there's the way I used this ladder setup to allow me to fudge the walls until I got everything to plumb. If you leave your second top plate out, you can still use your nail driver from the top, depending on your roof pitch. I can't get to the far left on this one. I still need the toenail. Anyway, bringing all this up because of toenailing. Specifically toenailing with an air gun, what I run into is I split the wood every stinking time. The best way to toenail I found is to drill a pilot hole with a small bit, smaller than your nail, and drive it in by hand. That's the only way I can keep from the boards walking and getting out of place while I'm driving them and or splitting. So back to my little toenail tip. If we consult the semi-accurate blueprints, we're doing the doorway for this existing room, this doorway here, and it's marked 2'8" by 6'8", and all my doors are 6'8". The widths vary, and this is something basic that I had to learn because I didn't know. If your doorway is marked as a 2'8", that's a 2'8" slab of door. You want a 1/2 inch on each side of the slab. For the jamb, if you use a pre-hung, which I'm going to do, I guess if you build one too, you want an inch on each side for shims and jamb. So you end up with a 2-foot slab plus an inch, and that's what your rough opening width is. And then 2 inches above the door, or 2.5. I don't remember. I'm past that now. I know. I just know my measurement for my doors. And then that's to the inside of the jack studs. So like on one side you'll have 3 inches of jack and king, and this side 3 inches of jack and king. Now your 2x4 header to go across that, your double 2x4 header, it's going to extend past the jack studs. So take your 2'8", add 2 inches, is 2'10", and then you're going to add an 1.5 inches on each side where your header sits on top of your jamb, on top of your jack stud. So basically that header needs to be 2'8", plus 1 inch here, plus 1 inch here, is 2'10", plus an 1.5 inches here and an 1.5 inches here for the jack studs, and that puts you at 3'1". So you can go ahead and pre-cut your headers at 3'1" for this door. And then the way the math works on mine, I'm setting these on top of a bottom plate, so I lose an 1.5 inches there. Yeah, that's what it is. It's 2.5 inches of gap above your slab. So you want to have 6'8" plus 2.5 inches, which is 6'10½". And then I'm setting these jack studs on top of an 1.5 inch bottom plate on each side. So that comes back to 6'9". So you look over here at what I've done, and this is the best way I found to pre-configure. Oh, the lighting here stinks. Sorry about this, but those are my two top plates cut at 3'1", And then over here I've got, get where I can show you all of it. I've got my jack studs on the left, my king studs on the right. Now to do my king studs, you just measure from bottom plate to the bottom of the first top plate and cut them to length. And you sometimes, like in this case, this is new wood. It's a little bit thinner than this. This is not true dimensional wood, but it is still thicker. Same way with the top plates, the old wood is a little bit thicker. I usually pick a measurement that is a little tight and just beat it on the hammer. It helps. It helps if it sticks a little bit. So anyway, I'm going to lay this out and pick this video back up afterwards. Okay, so now I've laid it out kind of like it would be if it was in the wall. And I'm using the bottom plate on that wall to push everything up against. But you got your jack studs in the middle, king studs on the outside, and your headers in place. Now when you do this, get you an eyeball and look down here and make sure that's kind of straight. If it's not straight, you have to shuffle it at the end. But you're going to get it pretty close, and you really don't need this one right now. But this is going to let you use the subfloor under you to make sure that they're flush on that plane. And while it's sitting down, you can drive nails from the back. This lets you push this in tight where it sits on the jack stud. Jack stud's pushing against the bottom plate. Push this one in tight so it's sitting against the bottom plate. And it's fairly easy to pick up the big giant nail gun and drive hammer straight parallel to the floor. Something like that right there. Two nails on each side. Okay, so I've nailed these in, and while nailing, you can pull this together with this hand, and the hand that's holding the camera, use it to hammer your nails in. Alright, so at this point we're done, and we need to flip this header over. Now I wish I had someone to hold this while I did this, but basically pick up this side, tilt it over this way where it's standing on its end. I end up flipping the whole thing over flat on the other side. It's easier to hold it if it's flat because it's going to try to pull apart a little bit. I mean, you know, just be careful when you flip it over. Alright, flipped it over. Then you get to stand inside your doorway and do the same thing. Push it up tight to the bottom, tight to that joint right there. Slide your other header in. Drop it down till it hits the jack stud. And then with your thumb, you can push that to the floor, pull this in tight with your fingers, and nail it again. Alright, so now you have finished door framing. Do not put the jack studs in yet. Just stand your door frame up. Oh, this works better with two hands. That creaking worries me. And there's your door frame. Carefully carry it over to the other side and set it in. Now to set it in place, set the bottom just barely on it. Stand it up till it bumps the top plate, and you can slap it in with your hand. Now, I've got to get it set plumb. The snugness will make it easier to hold its place. And use shortcuts as much as you can. For me, this works out where I want to put a scrap 2x4 between the wall stud that's there and this king stud, and that'll get my gap that way. Obviously, if all of this is tight, if you gap from there, it's going to lay out the way it wants to there. Nail in the firm side first. Get it toenailed into the top and toenailed into the bottom, and then I'll do this side, toenail it in, and then use a plumb or a level and make sure that this king stud is level. After you're done with that, set your jack studs in, nail them together, and call it a framed rough opening. Oh, and go back and add your cripples. I'm going to do all of them last because I hate cripples, and I'm probably going to drill them with a drill bit. I hope this little video is helpful to somebody out there. If it is, let me know. Leave a note in the comment. Subscriptions and interaction is about the only thing that lets somebody like me feel the desire to continue.